let's go. I will learn new things. I will be creative. Grab the gears, let's gather round, and adventure is always waiting. This storytelling is for us, and we always know what's happening. We act, we play, we dance, we sing from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning. Youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Good morning, good morning, good morning to all of our listeners and, of course, our viewers via Vaughan Radio's Facebook page and YouTube channels. And welcome to another edition of Youth on the Go here on Vaughan Radio. I am Zanella Claxton from the Department of Education, and just about every Saturday, most Saturdays, we're here with you to bring you opportunities, activities, events, anything as it relates to our students, our children, our young people, anything that we think can empower, enlighten, develop. We try to bring as much as possible, and of course, information and updates. And so this Saturday is no different. I want to, of course, say a special good morning early at the top of the show to DeAndre, and hello. Good morning, DeAndre, and of course to his mom, Masha, as well. I know she's listening. DeAndre might still be asleep, but Masha is up and listening, so she can pass the message along. And of course to all of you who listen and tune in every Saturday, I want to say a special good morning to you, and of course to Auntie Vanny. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, so this morning, I have a few updates as per usual, and we have a special guest as well. But I will give the updates first, and then we will have a very fruitful, I think, and interactive conversation, information sharing with you. I want to start off with a few housekeeping matters, and just to say to the I know that there are some persons who have indicated that they missed me over the past 2 weeks. I was not at 100%, but I am closer to that now. So I am here, and in light of that, I did not get to distribute the prizes for the last show, and so the persons who won during the last show that I was on air, you can collect your prizes at the Department of Education on Monday. Anytime on Monday would be fine. Just collect your prizes at the Department of Education on Monday. For those who won in the last cohort and last round and did not get their prizes as yet, because I wouldn't have reached out to you to collect them, please collect them on Monday at the Department of Education. I'm sorry about that, but circumstances way beyond my control. I want to also, because I was not here last week, I want to say congratulations to the students who graduated from the various primary schools across the island, preschools and primary schools across the island. I know that your last term was not your regular time. It wasn't what you thought would be the case when you started the school year. I know you had big plans, but the COVID-19 pandemic showed up. And in showing up, the schools had to be physically closed, and so you were unable to have your traditional end of school year and all of your activities that you normally would have had. But I want to congratulate you, and I know that as you continue to grow, develop, you have proven that you're resilient, and you will continue to prove that you're resilient. And so, as I say commendations to you, I want to also commend your parents for keeping you on track as much as possible over the course of your lives, and of course during your final school year as well. I want to also commend your teachers, all of the teachers who would have interacted with you throughout the duration of your academic journey thus far. You're only just beginning. I know that many of you have a whole vast array of opportunities and events and activities ahead of you. And so as you transition to secondary school, I want you to remain focused and remember just how resilient you are, because there will be more challenges that will come your way. But I know, as I looked at each of you during your ceremonies, I know that you will be able to conquer, you'll be able to overcome, you'll be able to do great things. And in the next 5-10 years, as you think about a bit more about your futures, you will be charting courses that have been unseen, just as this pandemic has caused you to start thinking in a way that is non-traditional. And so congratulations again to all of you, and I look forward to hearing great things in the coming years coming out of the 2020 graduating class. I also want to say congratulations to the individuals who applied to be teachers. We had 19 persons enrolled in the Prospective Teachers Course Cohort 1. There will be 2 cohorts for 2 reasons. One, of course, in an attempt to practice physical distancing, and 2, more importantly, the fact that our 6th form students who applied would not have been able to attend during the regular session because they were enrolled in examinations. They were sitting examinations. And so as the examinations come to a close next Friday, we will start the following week working with them so that they can get the information and the activities and experiences that the cohort 1 would have also been able to encounter. And so congratulations to those who completed in cohort 1, and we will have a joint closing ceremony following cohort 2, and so we look forward to that as well. Thank you so much for being participatory. As I said to you, they were very interactive. They were enthusiastic, and they had an overall positive attitude, and that is very commendable. I want to say a special thank you to the team, Ministry of Education, Department of Education, the entire team, all persons who have been working behind the scenes. There are many, many, many things that happen to make one course happen. There are many things that happen outside of the course, and so everyone who has been working behind the scenes to make all that we had during the past 2 weeks possible, I want to say thank you. And I must say that the team has been working non-stop. I mean, nobody on the team has been on vacation for this year, and everybody's just continuously been going, and it's all in the best interest of the students. It's all for the best interest of our teachers, and I want to say thank you and huge commendations to all of our staff members there at Education. It is wonderful to be part of a team who has the heart of our education system, has the best interest of the education system at heart. So it's a privilege to be part of such a team, and as I said before, thank you to all who have made an input into making this activity, this course, possible. As I said at the beginning of the show, we have a special guest in studio, but I will not introduce our special guest until we have the opportunity to take a short break. So we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
From Queen City, Nevis, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, Vaughn Radio.
It's time, come on, rise and shine. You know, I know we're gonna have a great time. And now our passes quickly, you don't wanna miss it. So turn up the radio, it's you on the go. Youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Oh, let's go, let's go, let's go. I will learn new things. I will be creative. Grab your gears, let's gather round, and adventure is always waiting. This storytelling is for us, and we always know what's happening. We act, we play, we dance, we sing from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning. Youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Oh, youth on the go. Oh, let's start the show. Oh, let's go, let's go, let's go.
good morning to all of our radio listeners, our viewers via Vaughan Radio's Facebook and YouTube channels, and welcome to another edition of Youth on the Go here on Vaughan Radio. I am Zanella Claxton from the Department of Education, and when we think of education, we always think of the traditional. We always think of, mathematics and language arts and science and social studies, and those are, of course, an integral part of education. What I've observed, though, over the past few years is that our young people have their own view of what they want their futures to look like, and in many instances, it's not along the traditional pathway. And I find that very intriguing, and I know that sometimes parents get a bit, perturbed, they're not doing exactly what I want them to do. But I always believe that when you follow your heart and that when you do what you're passionate about, that you'll be able to be successful, and most of all, you'll be able to be happy. And so in light of that, I would love to introduce to you this morning allow him to introduce himself this morning, our guest. And can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Casey Jeffers. I'm from Nevis, born and raised. I'm from over Newcastle. I live in Camps now. I do photography, and I'm here today to talk about my first book, which is called Uniform, and also to speak on photography, creativity, and a sort of an untraditional career choice. Well, untraditional by our standards.
By our standards, yeah.
Right.
All right, thank you so much, Casey. Casey, you said that you're from Nevis, but I know that some of our younger listeners and viewers might not know,
Right.
who you are especially in terms of what schools you went to, or did you really grow up here, or did you leave? So tell us a bit about Casey as a young person, as a student.
So I went to. I did all my schooling in Nevis, from preschool right up to sixth form. I was very studious. I was very much into like books and reading and studying. So for the majority of my life, I was definitely on a very traditional path. You go to school and you leave school, which I did in sixth form, and then I worked at like RBTT, which a lot of people wouldn't know me from, really, because here for us it's like you working at a bank and you're like popular and well known.
Yes.
So a lot of people would know me from that, and then I also worked at like Nisbets for a while, and then I would have left in 2015, and then I moved to New York, and that's when I started doing photography. But prior to that, between sixth form and photography, like I modeled a bit, so I was doing some of that. I was doing some modeling regionally and as well internationally for a brief time. So I've been doing stuff that sort of falls under, that is different, I think, and everything has led me here. School, whatever, it has led me to doing something that I'm really passionate about, which is photography and storytelling. Yeah.
So, of course, you mentioned a lot of the paths that you took were non-traditional. You think of modeling.
Right.
Parents would say, modeling isn't a career.
Right.
Why would you want to pursue that?
I think we're not aware of what careers can be, and like the broadness of what a career could be. Modeling is a career, and it's like the fashion industry is like a multi-billion-dollar industry. And it's the same thing with photography. People would say, oh, well, you can't really make money, or you can't this, or you can't that. But that's not necessarily true, and I always say, well, you could be a lawyer, and you come here to Nevis to work, and everyone's a lawyer, and you're not making any money because you don't have any clients. So I think it's like something that like for me, I understood the why, and initially with like modeling, it was about being able to travel and like see the world and meet people, which I did, and that was like the blessing, I guess. And then eventually, like I decided to transition to being behind the camera. So yeah, so that's where I'm at now.
All right. So, in terms of your modeling, before I get to the photography, because we're working our way through your
Right.
the timeline, and by way of information, I knew Casey as a student,
Right.
and he was definitely the blueprint for an academic traditional
Right.
path. And going into a creative pathway does not mean that he's not equally as academic or
No.
intellectual or intelligent.
Right.
And so I'm trying to debunk some
Right.
myths that we
Right.
have and misconceptions that we have in terms of the creative industry and we call it the orange economy.
Right.
And so, but modeling, how did you get to the international pathway? Did it start from here, or is it something that started from New York, or?
No, so it started just out of curiosity, and I think at the time, this is like years ago, maybe 2007 or so, I think, if my memory is correct. There was like a local, there was like this show in St. Kitts that used to happen. It was like St. Kitts Fashion Weekend or something. So I sort of was curious about that, and I auditioned, and then I did that, and then one thing led to another, and then, you know, next thing it's like I did something in Barbados and Bahamas, and then I got signed to an agency in London, and then I went there for a couple of months, like in 2011.
Really?
Yeah. And like how people ask how, it's just like, for me, I'm very determined and I'm very ambitious, and I've always not thought that being from Nevis, I should limit myself. I've never thought along the lines of limit. So I researched agencies, you know, and like emailed people and met people along the way who directed me to like someone else or whatever. So that's basically how I would have gotten to do that. And it was when I was in London that for me the sort of switch happened in my mind, where it was like I was hanging out with a friend of mine who's a photographer, and like I would sort of assist him, like informally though. And it was kind of like, oh wow, this is interesting, like being on the other side of it, because it's a different dynamic. It's a different power dynamic to begin with. As a model, you don't really have much control over your image.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But as a photographer,
You control the person's image. Yeah.
right? And it's like you are sort of responsible for the I guess the holistic experience. Not saying that the model's role is any less important. Obviously, it's even more important in some ways. But yeah, so that was for me. And when the sort of switch happened in my mind, it's like, okay, I think I want to do photography instead. And again, it goes to the idea of being able to tell stories, and that even going to school, you know, I could remember sort of loving, I was always more into like the language, like English and like reading, because I read a lot, and I've always been like into like storytelling. And photography is a medium to tell stories ultimately. So that is what I think piqued my interest more than anything else. It's like a way, it was for me to find a way to sort of put into a place to put into to form, I guess, like all my interests and do it through like this medium. Yeah.
Wow.
And as you were saying, which is so important, and I think people don't realize that even if you go to school and you graduate with 12 distinctions, it doesn't mean that you have to be a doctor. It doesn't mean that you have to be an accountant. You don't have to do anything. And it's like if you pivot and you decide to say, oh, you know, I want to be a painter, you're still applying stuff that you've learned. You know, I've applied, and that's something I think that I'm really good at, that ability to, I guess, transfer knowledge and transfer skills. It's like when I worked at RBTT in customer service, it's like what I learned there I can still use now because I'm dealing with clients. So it's I think we have to really shift the way in which we teach young people to think, you know, to have them know that, you know, you graduate with 12 distinctions, you don't have to be what you are, quote unquote, supposed to do or what is expected. You can do whatever your heart's desire. And I feel like when you put people in that position of empowerment and you tell them, like, you know what, you could do what you're really passionate about, that really moves them to you know, live their lives and to do and put their all into something that they really, you know, really want to be doing, as opposed to going to a job, sitting there, and you're dying inside.
You know, and like I said at the top of the show, before I introduced you, if you're unhappy in any job, you become an unhappy person.
Right, and then you affect people.
You
around
affect
you.
people, yes, the people around you in the workplace, and then it transcends into your personal lives.
Right.
Because your family will be impacted, your close friends will be impacted, and I always am a firm believer, and anybody who has worked with me would tell you, I'm a firm believer that if you're unhappy someplace, you need to exit, go, because it doesn't make sense to, one, make yourself sick because you're unhappy, and two, make everybody else around you unhappy. So I think that person should always pursue their passionate about.
Yeah.
And sometimes the society, no matter what society, it doesn't have to be Nevis, anywhere, doesn't understand why. But if it's
That's
something, basically, you get a chance to pursue. And you know what, Casey, you talked about a career shift and a shift in interest, and that's before we go into definitely the project. I wanted to focus in on that a bit, because it is okay to career shift. It is okay to start along a path and realize, okay, it's not exactly, it's close to what I want, but it's not exactly what I want, so let's shift. And sometimes we frown down and we call it unstable, and but it's not necessarily that. It's sometimes as you go out to discover who you are and what your real interests are, sometimes you have to do a slight career shift. So in shifting from the modeling path and shifting over to photography, like you said, every job that you did prior and everything that you did prior contributed to making you the person you are today.
And that's humans that's like human evolution, you know. I think we are sort of conditioned to fracture ourselves and to fracture our identities as people. You know, you're one thing at home. Even when you're small, you're like, oh, you're expected to be this in school, you're expected to be this at home. When you go to church, you're expected to be this. So as you're growing as a child, you sort of lose a sense of self, and you lose a sense of who you are. And again, a lot of children, I think, children are inherently creative, right? But then as soon as the world gets a hold of you and people start to whisper like, oh, you want to be doing this, you know, stop mark up on the wall, stop do this, stop do that, then you sort of develop you know, like you don't want to do it because it's attached to something negative, because you're being punished, you've gotten punishment for it. And even in the schools, like, I came into creativity much later in my life, because I mean, at what, 20, I'm 31 now, and I started photography in my, like, 24 or so. And it's like I never even thought about it before, you know, because
it wasn't an option, basically.
It wasn't an option,
basically.
And even through school, you know, you're just you're in the cycle as a child. You know, you go to school every day. You're supposed to learn. You're supposed to come first in your test. You're supposed to be all these things. But then there isn't any. I'm not sure what it is now, but compared to like when I was going to school, even you, I'm sure it's like there wasn't anything to express creativity. I remember they had like drama class and
clubs,
stuff like that.
Doing the club stuff,
right?
Yeah.
But then at the same time, that is like, even in your mind, you just think like, oh, this is something I have to do. You're not really necessarily passionate about it. So I think, you know, in life, even students, or if you're like a adult working or whatever, whoever is listening, you know, you can shift and you can recreate yourself each time, because we're not meant to be constant. We're not meant to be static. You know, we are meant to evolve, and that is what evolution is. And sometimes it's scary, and sometimes people, you know, rather cling to what they know.
It's safe.
And be miserable.
It's safe. It's safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to, because I sit in a different seat. Well, I sit in this seat as a host,
Right.
but I'm sitting in my seat as in education.
Right.
And so I think it's a good time to probably let you know, and the general public, for those persons. We've said it a few times over the last year and a half, but we are currently in the process of reviewing and enhancing the curriculum. And what we did, we went through a series of consultations, including with students, and that was one of their concerns. They were concerned, okay, for example, we have music as a subject, and they were concerned that it's very traditional and theoretical. And so they were asking, for example, they would love to see music being something closer to music production and using the computer and
Like
logic
songwriting and
write songs
right.
and mix your own beats and that kind of
Right.
thing. Not that there's anything wrong
The
with
classical
the
approach,
the
right.
traditional approach, but they wanted to have kind of
Modern.
integrated modern, at least an element of it, because in terms of looking towards the future and future careers, the traditional would take you so far, but to further equip them, they thought it would be important to have subjects that an enhanced version of music. And so what we've done through the curriculum enhancement process is and it's going to roll out slowly over the next 5 years. But one of the courses listed is music production. So that, and it's a 1-year course, and the curriculum, the secondary curriculum, is going to be through course and credit system, and not necessarily graduate because you did CXCs or didn't, or graduate because you came to school every day for 5 years.
Yes.
But you're
Because
going to
you
graduate
completed.
because you completed certain credits. So you have a minimum of 18 credit hours between third and fifth form. In the first and second form years, you have more explorational, so you're exploring. So you have subjects that you can choose to do whether you're in first or second form, and you're exploring subjects. Of course, you have those basic. And then even with language, you incorporate a bit of our, we call it local English,
Right.
instead of, language or dialect, or local English. And how can we use that as part of, and hold on to our identity, because our students thought as well that they didn't get to experience enough of Nevis or St. Kitts Nevis. They said even in history, it's, Caribbean history, European history,
Right.
but we don't get to know about the richness of our past. We don't get to learn about, former premiers and prime ministers and leaders and economists and doctors and teachers. We get to learn about all of the persons, the presidents of the United States.
right.
And so that is a new course that we're putting in as well. It's compulsory, St. Kitts Nevis history. And of course you have the economic parts, and we kind of weaved in many parts of it. We're in the writing process, and COVID-19 definitely slowed us down a lot. We were supposed to pilot several of the courses this year in September. We're only going to get to pilot 2 grades this year, 2 primary grades. We're not going to pilot any secondary this year. We're going to start them next year if all things go as planned, and then roll out for the 5 years till we kind of graduate out the current role. So
Right.
the first group that's going to carry on to the new curriculum will be our current grade 6 group. Going into secondary next year, they'll start off in first form under the new curriculum and keep moving. But things are in there like theater arts and dance and that kind of thing, because students love those things. Graphic design is on there.
That's
Graphic
good,
design is a course, and so we're not going to be pinned to the CXC curriculum. The students will be able to write CXCs because content is content.
Yes.
But the course credits will come from our curriculum with the course summaries. So if a student transfers to the US, to India, to wherever their parents may take them, they will go with their course summaries so that they can easily be placed when they get to the next country.
Yeah.
It's a big project. It's massive. It takes a lot of time behind the scenes, and as I said, persons will not be able to see all of those things that are happening. But that was one of the loud cries coming out from the students. Parents, had some concerns, but I think the students were very vocal about it and passionate.
Right.
And so we listened to that.
Yeah, I think I love that initiative, definitely. And it was something that you said earlier, where it's like the history that we're taught is very colonial. We are being taught lies. Let's put it like that, because it's true. And even language as like our dialect as as an art, because it is, if you look at it, and that is something I've thought about definitely, where it's like, you know, growing up, the sort of values that we had within the culture, you know, it comes out of our colonial past, you know, and all of it is about assimilation. For instance, we're like, oh, you're supposed to speak the Queen's English, but what is the Queen's English? You know, until I started traveling and stuff, and this is like crazy to even say, but for I think the majority of my younger life, I used to think like Americans and people from like British, they spoke the Queen's English, right? But then as an adult, and you hear people on the TV, like celebrities or whoever, and you hear them talking, and it's like, it's not grammatically correct what they're saying, you know, and it's broken, just as broken as ours. The accents are different, but they're speaking a lot of broken, you know, English. So I always found that very fascinating, how we sort of almost wanted to erase our dialect, you know, and erase, you know, our oral history, I guess. So I think that is important to sort of integrate it. Like, you don't have to, there's a time and place, you know, and ultimately language is about communication.
Yes.
So if I come up here and we are here and we're speaking purely in dialect,
People
might not understand, and that's, so you understand it's
Why?
more about, you know, communication, right? So there is a place for it, I think, as an art form. So I kind of like that idea for sure.
And so for the English,
Mhm.
for English language arts,
Mhm.
your local English is going to be an integral part
Yeah,
of
and
it.
I think that's
And
important.
I, you know what I always found interesting? Whenever you have to write an exam, they would tell you that dialect is allowed in conversation in the
Right,
exam.
right.
But we never ever. I was an English teacher. We never taught the children how to write that.
How to write it.
So how are you going to tell me you're allowed to write it? Or, you know,
It's so funny, because
yeah, it
sometimes
is.
if I'm like looking up, because you know you speak it, but you don't know how to spell.
Yes, you do.
Right? Because it's basically like it's sound,
Yes.
right? So sometimes I would Google like Wikipedia or whatever, and you'd find they have like the dialect
Mm-hmm.
there. So it's very interesting. Like we have a language that we don't know how to spell the words, and we don't know how to give it structure.
And you know what I found interesting as well, traveling, like you said, you go to, no matter where you go in the world, and I'm going to call out Jamaica, because for some reason, not for some reason, Jamaica is very focused on culture
Right.
and language.
They know who they are.
They know who they are, and they're confident in who they are.
Yes.
And so you would go to anywhere in the world.
Anywhere,
Doesn't matter
you'll
where you
find a
go.
Jamaican.
You find a Jamaican, and you know that you found a Jamaican. You don't always find that with other countries
Yeah,
and cultures,
right.
and so that's something that we also wanted. One of the, because what we set out doing was to highlight the qualities of a St. Kitts Nevis citizen. What are the 7 characteristics that we want every graduate of every school in the Federation to possess? And so one of the big things is an appreciation of who you are and your culture. And so, of course, we segued a bit, but it all ties back in
To the book. Right.
And so the idea is that it is okay, and you know, as you said, we grew up a certain way, and I was equally as academic. I'm still academic, but I'm also
Whatever that
understanding,
means.
whatever that means. I'm also open and very much understanding of the fact that we have to allow people to be happy.
Right.
The more miserable you are,
Right.
the worse the society
Yes.
gets. And so if you, the one thing, you know, morals and values and being respectful, those things you don't ever, there are no trade-offs for
Right.
those.
But we must also bear in mind that those things are formed, and they can be shifted the
Yes,
same way.
yes.
You know, because recently I was looking at something which was so interesting, where it was like, oh, you know, the Jews, and like with Hitler and whatnot. At that time, that was considered like, you know, from his perspective, what he was doing. Whoever bad man in the world, in history, whatever they do, it's right. You know what I mean?
In their
Even
minds,
like
yeah.
colonizers and stuff like that. You know, kidnapping Africans, bringing them to
In their minds, they were right.
That was right.
Yeah.
So it's like more morals and
Shift,
they
yeah.
shift. You know, so I think we also have to be open to shift in thoughts and stuff like that along those lines as well. You know.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So you worked embarked on a project. Started last year,
right? When we
Last
met.
year, yes. And so the project, and you can raise the book again and tell us a bit about the project.
Yeah.
The thought behind the
Right.
project. Why did you do the project?
So this, wait, should I?
Yes, very good.
So, so this is the book. It's entitled Uniform. So this ties in very nicely to the discussion that we've been having so far, where we're taught to think about our culture in a very linear way, right? So, you know, culture by definition is a way of life. Sorry. So culture by definition is like a way of life. But then we start to think culture, I mean, maybe not everyone, but it's very easy to think that culture is masquerades, Steve Pan, and, you know, the sort of things from that sort of space. But we fail to recognize sometimes that, you know, like wearing your uniform,
It's part of our culture.
you know, this is culture. This is our culture because it is a way of life. So in 2018, I came home from New York. My work visa was up. So I came out to like redo it, and I ended up spending a year here. And while I was here, I was just thinking of, again, because I'm always open to shifting, I was just reflecting on the 3 years that I spent there and thinking about like my career and life in general. And I was like, you know, I kind of felt like I was getting caught up in the industry and doing what I thought I should be doing and shooting, creating work from a place of what I thought I should be doing. Again, I had no precedence of what a photographer was because I didn't really know anyone who was doing photography. Well, I knew people, but I didn't know anyone personally growing up. You know what I mean? So it's like the seed, the foundation was rooted in academics, right? So when I came home, for me, it was sort of like a reset. You know, people now are going through their reset, like mine was then. You know? And I started to just think about what I wanted who I wanted to be as a creative person, and what I wanted to say, and what I wanted my work to represent. So I thought, you know, okay, like I'm here, what can I create that only I can create, you know, because I have access and whatever. So that was part of like my initial train of thought. And then I was like, okay, I get it. I could do pictures of kids in uniforms because that is so unique, and I can do it because it's only me who can do it, because I'm familiar with, you know, people here and whatnot. So that's really like the sort of lightning rod. That's how it started. And then I was like, okay, well, it could be a fashion project because the uniform is clothes. It could be it's portrait because I'm doing portraits of the kids, and then it could also be documentary because I'm documenting a period of time. So the age group within the project, the youngest being 10, and the oldest being 18. So from primary school, from grade 5 and 6, straight up to sixth form. That's like the age group. So collectively, it's like a documentary of that age, that space. And then I also, in addition to taking the photographs, I then interviewed each child, and it's accompanied, so each image is accompanied by like their name, their age, their school, and also there's like a little quote from them. And so I was having like the conversation with the kids, and so much was revealed in these conversations, you know, based on like what we're saying now, where it's like the kids are definitely wanting more for themselves.
Yes.
You know, one guy, he was telling me he stays up late at night and watches YouTube and watches like car reviews, and so I was like, you know, you could go down to Hosford's and, you know, have somebody tape you reviewing like the cars and stuff like that. And then within that moment, I could see he was thinking, and then there was almost like a defeatist kind of thing that overcame him, where he's like, no, you know, and I think that is sort of like a lot of the
Really?
yeah, and it's
That's sad.
it is kind of sad, but I think it's like the reality. It's you open your computer and you at your age you see people on YouTube doing these things. You know, people with like 100,000 subscribers, like your age, and it's kind of like a disconnect because you then close your computer and you go out to the world here, and then people are going to tell you like, oh, you should be a doctor, lawyer, etc. Right? So then it's like you don't connect. You're not able to connect the dots.
But Casey, it's interesting. With that conversation, I mean, I would have been like, yeah, let me go try it because it goes back to our initial conversation of limiting. I think that he thought about the persons who might ridicule him or think that it's not, and that's probably what created that barrier. But the persons who have millions of subscribers on YouTube didn't get them overnight.
Right.
And some persons worked really hard to build their content, and they would tell you, YouTubers and bloggers and bloggers, they would tell you that sometimes it took years for them to get persons to follow. But an interesting fact, though, that I discovered during COVID-19, because you discover lots of things during a lockdown, but many of the younger children who don't have the inhibitions as yet, they want to YouTube and TikTok all day, and so
it's good.
So it's shifting under us, and it's up to us to as a society how we're going to handle it.
Yeah, and I think it's like about creating the structures that enable these kind of things to flourish, and to flourish without fear of like, what am I going to do here? I can't do this because I'm going to make money and this and that, and you know what I mean? It's like with the book, with this project, what was so interesting about this, and this is like another thing for me, was it's not just about uniforms, right? It's like deeper than that, because it's about visibility, it's about representation. I grew up, and even last night I was speaking to someone about the book, and we were talking about this experience when I used to go to Combermere, then Combermere, in the 90s. I remember very vividly, tourists would be driving by and they would be taking pictures, and we'd be like running, right? Because culturally, and I'm sure you've probably heard this too, where people would say, if they take your pictures, you're going to end up in some magazine, you're going to be made it naked, or they're going to put you like a dog, or whatever, myth people perpetuate, right? And so that in and of itself was something that I thought about. It was like, so much of us as black people in general, we are never in control of our image. We're never in control of our own stories. We're never in control of our narratives. It's always being told for us, and it's never the entire and the true story. So I was very cognizant of that and wanting to do something. I wanted to see something I wanted to see a book like this in the world for my younger self, because I've never seen it. So that was also something that drove me to create this, to put something into the world that I've never seen. And to do so from a place of, when I started, the first school I went to was Gingerland, I think, and then the last was Sixth Form. And throughout the whole process, for me, I was very clear within myself of what I wanted it to be. And I wanted it to be more about human connection and more about presence. And, so often within our societies, we sort of like to put children in a child's place, whatever that means. But I kind of wanted to do this and to elevate them in a way that even if you don't know the children in the book, you are connecting with a version of yourself, right? Because each child within the pages of the book, each child it's very individual heavy, meaning each child looks like themselves. No child looks alike, not just physically, but like the sort of presence that they're bringing to the photograph. So it was a collaboration, definitely, as well. And I was very clear in my mind as to not wanting to make them look like, to sort of infantilize them, you know, where it's like, oh, like cute kids, you know what I mean? I wanted it to feel like they had something to say. I wanted to give them images that felt empowering. And even if you know, you live in the US or you've never heard about Nevis or whatever you're from, that you can pick up this book and you can connect with it. You know, you could connect with it and you can see yourself, no matter if you're black, white, green, purple, you know, whatever. You can look at the images and you could say, wow, I could see myself. Like, she reminds me of me back in school, or, you know, like this project touches me. And that has been like a lot of the reception as well. Like, people can connect with it. And that was very important.
Casey, we've been talking for a long time, and we can talk forever. I'm getting that, because
it's so much.
It's a lot, and it's a lot about where students are now, and it's about, like I said, that paradigm shift. Culturally, there are certain things that we hold dear to, that they're very important to us, and at the same time, we have to come to the realization that
you got to let go sometimes.
There's some things you have to let go.
Right.
And if you're going to create global citizens who can be competitive anywhere in the world, there are certain things that they just have to be aware of. And one of those things is that there are no limits.
Yes.
There are no limits. The only persons who limit you would be, the only person who can really truly limit you as an individual is yourself. But Casey, you wanted to have an opportunity. We have just about 8 minutes left.
Right.
We're almost
so
out of time.
like a call-in.
So
Can we do a call-in?
Yes, we can. If you have, you want to ask questions, or how do you want to go about giving away?
So I have like 3 books here. So we can do like a question.
Okay.
I don't know if I said enough to about the book to ask a question. Let's see. Well, yeah. I could think of 2 questions. Okay. So the first question is, what is the youngest, what age is the youngest age that I photographed in the book? And how many schools are on Nevis is like a second question.
Okay. You have to be careful, because you have to say whether it's preschool, primary school,
right.
secondary.
Oh,
so
yeah,
from
that's
what
true.
age?
How many
primary
and secondary
combined
schools are on the island? So 2 questions. One, what is the youngest age in the book? And the second question is, how many primary and secondary schools are on the island?
All right, 469-1616, 469-1700. You get your own copy of Uniforms, and Uniforms is a
uniform singular.
Uniform, and this book is a book of photographs of, as Casey correctly said, quotes. It's a reflection of each of us in some way, shape, or form that we can identify with. And we have several students here on Nevis who are represented in the book Uniform by Casey Jeffers. If you can tell us what is the youngest age of the person photographed, 469-1616, 469-1700. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Casey.
Hi, how are you?
I am fine. This is Marissa. I'm really not calling for the giveaway, but I have to say you did a fantastic job, and I'm super proud.
Thank you.
To be associated with Nevis, my children being born here, and what you're doing for the country.
Thank you. Oh, I know who this is.
Thanks, Marissa, and you are indeed correct. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thanks.
but if nobody answers the questions, I will do a go at it.
Okay.
Okay.
But very, very good, and it's amazing what you're doing. And I do like the implementation of that new course that you guys announced on air a while ago. That is brilliant, and it's something that is needed.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for calling.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. All right, so if anyone out there knows the youngest age of the students photographed in uniform, call 469-1616, 469-170, or if you know how many primary and secondary schools there are on Nevis, then of course same numbers, 469-1616, 469-1700. We don't want to have to go over to next to Casey. It looks like we might have to continue the conversation because I don't think we even touched the surface.
I know, it's like so much
Yes.
things.
So, callers, listeners, we know that this book, as I said, is a reflection of, when I look through it, there are some of them you can look at them and you can say, boy, this one looks a little mischievous, or this one, and you can see either yourself or somebody who was in class with you, okay? Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
There are 3 secondary schools and 8 high schools.
8 primary?
8 primary.
Close. Did you photograph? There are a little bit more than 8 primary, but I'm not sure. Did you get all the schools? Yes, you did.
I didn't do one school.
Okay.
I didn't do Nevis Academy, so that's the only one I didn't do.
Okay, but there are a little bit more than 8.
Right, I think.
All right. You want to take another try? Okay, we have another caller. Good morning.
It's me again. As nobody is calling in, and I know the program is coming to an end. I'm going to take a go at the number of schools. This is a guess. I am not sure. But based on the number of parishes and whatnot, I am thinking maybe 14.
Close, but a little bit over.
There you go.
Yes. Thank you for trying.
Yes, okay.
All right. So the numbers to call, 469-1616, 469-170. Come on, I know we can write out the names of the schools on a paper really fast. Even though...
let's do an easier question.
Okay, we're going to
I want to give away a book
today.
So if someone can look, if you're on, I mean, you can't see it on radio.
But if you're on YouTube,
but if you're on
Facebook.
YouTube or Facebook, if you're looking at the cover image here, if you can tell me what school the young lady who made the cover goes to, then this book is yours, and you can pick it up at Von Radio.
Okay, so the cover picture. Who's on the cover of Uniform by Casey Jeffers? I see Melissa is trying to get the book, Melissa,
Von Radio employees are not qualified.
All right, so Uniform, the cover image.
You can tell me
which school does that student represent? Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
The child is from the Ivor Walters Primary School.
Correct.
Yay!
So you win yourself a signed copy of the book.
Thanks.
My signature is in it, and you can collect it at...
we could take it to the office. Take it to the office for Monday, and they can get it from education.
Sure. Yeah.
That might be easier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's your name?
Alicia Brown. She's at the Ivor.
Oh yes, Miss Brown.
I should have disqualified teachers.
Oh my goodness! But I don't know that Miss Brown would have known that the student made the cover because, of course, school didn't open since, so we didn't get to send them in. So, we'll let Miss Brown through. Okay, Miss Brown. So we'll have the book at the office for you. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
You're welcome.
All right, bye.
Okay, and Casey, we have 1 minute.
We have 1 minute.
And
so someone needs to call to get another book.
The lowest age.
The lowest age, and I said that
minimum.
before.
Yes, you did. What was the age of the youngest student who was captured in this book? And while we're doing that, we're going to do our quick wrap up because we have like 30 seconds. And so, Casey, I just want to thank you. It looks like we have to come back for
Another
you to give the other books away. But want to thank you. Thank you for sharing. And good morning. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. I am calling regarding the youngest age.
Yes. Go ahead.
That was 10.
Yes. What's your name?
Shelda Huggins.
Shelda Huggins. You can collect your book from the Department of Education. Congratulations.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Casey, we got 2?
We got 2 books.
Okay, good. And we are going to I want to say a quick happy birthday in advance to Auntie Vanny. Auntie Vanny, enjoy your birthday on Thursday. And Casey, we'll be back. Enjoy your week, all of our listeners. It was an exciting show, and we will continue at some other time. Have a wonderful week. Woo-hoo.
With all